Welcome to the Selling from the Heart podcast on the Salescast Network. You've joined a global movement of sales professionals who are dedicated to being authentic and building trust. We call it Selling from the Heart. Together, we are on a mission to bring sincerity and substance to the sales profession we all love. Get ready to be inspired and equipped as we join our hosts, Larry Levine and Daryl Amy.
As we begin this new year, one of the questions on everyone's mind is, how am I going to make this year more successful than last year?
We get it. There are only 24 hours in a day. I've always thought to myself, wouldn't it be great if you can create more time?
The good news is you can create more time. Our friends at Work Better Now have cracked the code. With a virtual assistant, you can offload the tasks that consume your time so you can focus on more of what drives results.
Our virtual assistant from Work Better Now has freed up time so we can focus on building the Selling from the Heart movement. It's cost effective and easy.
I know this can work for you. To learn more, visit www.workbetternow.com or click the link in the show notes for a free consultation so you can free up time and make 2024 your best year yet. Hello and welcome back to the Selling from the Heart podcast. Your co-host, Daryl Amy, here today with Larry Levine. What's going on, Larry?
Everything's going on. It's another great day here. Great seeing you. I am so looking forward to our podcast guest today, Daryl. We're all in for a treat.
You know, our friend Davin Salvagno is in the house. We're going to bring some purpose to this conversation. And it is so exciting right now. Here we are. You know, this year is moving forward so quickly. And I love the excitement around the community at Selling from the Heart. It's so much fun every week interacting with our friends and all the members in the Selling from the Heart Insiders group. We just came out of our Up Close and Personal today. It was so much fun. And Larry, I just absolutely love the energy here at the Selling from the Heart community.
Yeah, I just have to give a special shout out because he's near and dear to us. And I know that he's also a friend of Davin's, and that's Dan Dominguez. Dan Dominguez, you're a rock star. It was you that actually brought us to the Why Institute. It was you that really helped all of us rediscover our why. So Dan, you're a rock star. Thank you.
Yeah, big shout out to Dan. And by the way, if you want to come hang out with other like-hearted sales professionals, come join us in the Insiders group. In the show notes, you'll see a link to sellingfromtheheart.net/free-pass, and you can come join us for a future Up Close and Personal. As we get started today, Larry, I know we're right on the edge of a super exciting announcement here at Selling from the Heart. So I can't wait to roll this out to everyone, but I just want to say, this is one you want to bookmark, like, subscribe. Don't just like or subscribe to the podcast. Make a note, make a mental note, or write it on your calendar, because in the next couple of weeks, things are going to get even more exciting around here. So, Larry, I can't wait, and this is going to be a fun spring at Selling from the Heart.
It sure will. Mum's the word. I could say it now, but I'm not. Mum's the word.
Well, hey, we got a great guest today. The word of the day today is Davin Salvagno. Davin is an inspirational speaker, recognized as one of the top voices on purpose in the world. He's the founder of PurposePoint and the Purpose Summit, and the best-selling author of the book, Finding Purpose at Work. After spending nearly 2 decades serving in various leadership roles in operations, HR, marketing, finance, Davin found a passion for inspiring leaders to revisit their founding purpose for who they are and what they do. His breakthrough keynote talk, The Power of Purpose, received international recognition in 2018, and his many talks since have helped hundreds of organizations and people, including myself, across the world engage, inspire, and impact their people. Davin is a walking inspiration to everyone he meets, and he's here in the studio today. Davin, welcome back to the Selling from the Heart podcast. It's great to have you here.
It is so good to be here. Oh my gosh. I love spending time with you, Daryl, you, Larry. I can't think of a better way to be spending my afternoon than here with you guys. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Great seeing Davin.
Always. And as we get started, Davin, you know the question that every guest on the Selling from the Heart podcast answers And that is, what does it mean to you to sell from the heart?
So first of all, big fan of Selling from the Heart. Larry, remember when the book came out? We've got multiple copies in our office. It's a fantastic work, and it's more than a work. It's a movement. It's more than a book. It's a movement that you have championed. And I love the idea. I remember early on when you were talking about, don't be an empty suit. And I mean, that was such a great call to action, because what it means to me personally is, selling, I'll be honest, I used to demonize sales. I did. I like the idea of sales, or just even salespeople, just always had a negative connotation to me, until someone said that really all selling is, if done well, is solving a problem. And when I reframe that in my mind, what does it mean to sell from the heart? What that means to me is genuinely understanding the problems and needs of those around you, and then finding a way to either solve those problems or meet their needs. And if we do that genuinely and authentically and from our heart, the best follows. And that is the movement that you are leading so well, and that you wrote so well about in your book.
Oh, well, hey, Davin, thank you. There's a word. I just want to unpack this word. There's one word I wanted to key in on, and it's reframing. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us have to reframe not only our mind, but we have to reframe our heart, especially with some of us as we view sales. So I'm just curious, Davin, what does reframing look like to you? Like if we were going to sit down and by the way, we're going to have a great conversation today, Daryl, walk us through what reframing might look like if you're a salesperson and you got to reframe your mind and maybe reframe your heart a little bit on your viewpoints around sales. Walk us through that through Davin's lens. I'm just curious.
So, I mean, that's a great question. And anytime you think about reframing, it's really looking at things differently. That's what reframing is. You could take something that was really old and is in a really old frame, and take the essence of what it is out and put it in a new frame. And all of a sudden, people look at it differently. People who wouldn't have looked at it before, all of a sudden now look at it because it's been reframed. And so when I think about what that particularly means to this conversation and into sales, is that I do believe that, much like myself, sales has been looked at a certain way for a very long time. And what you've done is taken the essence of what sales really is and took it out of a very old, tired, ugly frame. And you've put it into a very nice, attractive frame.
There you go.
What to look at.
There
right?
you go.
I love it.
That's what it is.
Keep talking, Davin. Keep talking.
That's such a great picture, pun intended. That really is a great picture of all of this, and reframing sales. And this, this conversation today, I'm so excited about, because you wrote just a phenomenal book. I hope everyone grabs a copy. We'll put it in the show notes. It's called Finding Purpose at Work. And it's an incredible guide to helping people discover their purpose at work. But of course, we're here at Selling from the Heart. And what we want to do is figure out how to find purpose in sales. So Davin, I know when I started my job in sales 3 decades ago, my purpose, I'll just be honest, my purpose was to be in sales a couple of years and make as much money as I could, as quickly as I could. And that's how I started. And I think that's how many of us started in sales, just going, okay, I need a job. I need to make some money. Sales is going to let me do it quickly. But over the past few decades, things have reframed for me a lot, and Purpose Summit and all of that's been a part of it. But as we set this whole thing up, talk about finding purpose in sales and what that means to you when you think from the perspective of a sales professional that wants to bring some purpose to their work.
Such a good question. And, I'm going to say something that might in the beginning here actually ruffle a little sales feathers, if you will, but stick with me for a second, because you said that in the beginning, your purpose was to make as much money through sales as possible. Now, here's the thing is everyone who's in sales obviously wants to make as much money as possible. That's why they're in sales. But quite frankly, the number one thing that gets in the way is the focus on making money. That's the problem. And so what you need to first do is absolutely disconnect purpose and money. They have to literally be in different universes. And if you focus on the purpose, the money will follow. But if you focus on the money, you often will miss opportunities to deliver on a purpose that's staring you right in the face that could actually lead to money that you then miss out on. And so we're going to reframe, right, this conversation to say, hey, stop focusing on the money. Instead, start focusing on the purpose, and the money will follow. And I just gave a keynote talk yesterday to a bunch of people, and we talked about the experience economy, which was a great book that was written back in the 80s. Phenomenal.
Yes.
Love that book. And it talks about 5 different stages of economic progression. It talks about commodities, goods, services, experiences, and then transformation as the highest point of economic value. And people are willing to pay for the highest point of economic value based off of the problems that you solve for them, which we talked about earlier. And if you think about a lot of salespeople today are still trying to sell on service and quality. They're trying to compete on price and value. They're still focused on the bottom parts of this economic value of commodities, goods, and services. But people who are really excelling and doing well, they set the transaction aside, they set the money aside, and they ask the top 2 questions of the experience economy. Number 1, what is it that you want to do? That's the experience. Number 2, who is it that you want to become? And that's the transformation. And if you focus on just asking those 2 questions, not what you want to buy, not how much you want to buy, not what service I could provide, throw those away. What do you want to do? Who do you want to become? And how can I help? And a lot of times we are so short-termed in our thinking because relationships and repeat sales is a long-term game. And so a lot of times we're so focused on the transaction on the short term that we don't focus on asking the right questions that lead to long-term relationships and eventually long-term sales.
There's so much gold here, but I'm just sitting here thinking, and I just have to address this, Davin, is there's going to be some young sellers, because we have a wide variety of people who listen to the Selling from the Heart podcast. And you said you got to separate, right, the money from the purpose and so forth. But speak to those young sellers that are going, I get this, Davin, but you know what? I need to make some money here. And that's a tough one to really break apart. So where does somebody start, especially the young sellers that are out there?
So one of my favorite movies is The Pursuit of Happiness. And so for the young sellers out there, if you have not seen The Pursuit of Happiness, that is a must-see movie. And honestly, Larry, it directly answers the question that you just asked. Because if you haven't seen the movie, I'm going to frame it for you really quick, right? You've got Will Smith, who plays the main character, and he is initially selling medical equipment machines, and he buys the wrong set of machines. They're outdated. He can't make any money off of it. His family's poor. They can't pay the rent. They're struggling. And one day, as he's literally at rock bottom, he sees a guy pull up in a Ferrari, and he asks him what he does. And he says, I'm a stockbroker. And from that moment forward, he makes a decision in his head that he's going to become a stockbroker because he can make a lot of money and he can get himself out of the situation that he's in. Now, the entire movie is really the first 3/4 of the movie is his struggle to figure out how to make ends meet, because right now he doesn't have anything to sell. He needs to make money now in the short term, but he has nothing to sell. And the whole journey and the whole process ends up being how he has to build relationships to eventually get to the place where he knows he's going to be able to be okay. And there's this one scene where he's just cold calling. I mean, he is cold calling, and you're supposed to work from the list from the bottom to the top, and he chooses to skip it and call the top of the list which is like the CEO of this big company in San Francisco. And the CEO happens to answer the phone. And the CEO happens to invite him to a 49ers game. And while he's at the 49ers game, he's missing out on the experience and the relationship buildings because he's so busy pulling his business card out and trying to make connections with the people that are in the suite, hoping that maybe he'll land one of them as a client right now so he can get that sale. And the CEO tells him to stop and just enjoy the game with his son and to be a human being and not human doing. And because he chooses to do that, he builds some genuine, authentic relationships. And within the weeks that follow, all of those relationships call him back and he ends up producing more sales in the firm than anybody else in that firm. Now, I just ruined the movie for you, but you should go watch it anyway.
We've all seen it. We'll watch it again.
I would say to young people.
Yeah. That's so powerful. So Davin, thinking about purpose in sales, so here's been my experiences. My purpose has unfolded over decades. And so I'm curious what you think about this. I think purpose is a journey. I think it's something that we're always trying to get to. And I think some people feel really frustrated because I haven't nailed it yet. But so they give up maybe even and just go back, put their head down and go back to work. But I think purpose is a journey. I'm curious your thoughts on that. And how do you, for someone who's listening in going, I hadn't thought about the purpose thing in a while. How do I restart that journey towards discovering my purpose, especially in the context of what I'm doing at work in my role in sales?
So it's beautiful because that question and what we just talked about actually connect perfectly. And here's what I mean by that. A lot of times people think purpose is a fluffy word, pie in the sky word, or it's just so big, purpose. Like, what's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of my life? Like, that's just too big of a conversation to tackle. So I don't want to have it. But I would challenge people to think about purpose differently rather than thinking about, a grandiose purpose for your life. And we could argue that, from a spiritual aspect, that maybe there's a grandiose purpose for our life. And I would tell you personally that there is. But when it comes down to a more fundamental piece, that purpose is not singular. Purpose is plural. And it also is momentary, meaning that you've got multiple competing purposes, if you will, happening at any given time. I've got a purpose as a speaker, as an author, as a business leader, as a thought leader, as a husband, as a father, as a worship leader, I could go on and on and on about all the purposes that I have. But the question you have to ask yourself is, what's important now? One of my favorite authors and dear friends, she MCs the summit with me every year, the Purpose Summit. You'll hear about that later. Her name's Dr. Amber Salking, and she wrote a great book called Winning the Mental Game. And she has a acronym in there, WIN. What's important now? And so again, kind of going back to what we said earlier, people are so busy being doings that they aren't human beings. So the first step is you need to slow down and be a human being and not a human doing, and be present in the moment that you're in. And so if you're present in the moment that you're in, then you're actively listening. And if you're actively listening, then you hear problems of those around you that need to be solved. You hear needs of those around you that need to be met. And then you could use at that point in time, whatever gifts, talents, abilities, skill sets, insights, experiences, or even products and services that you have in that moment to solve the problems of those around you and meet the needs of those around you. But if you're not focusing on being present in the moment and looking for the purpose in the moment, you will miss the opportunity to step into your purpose in that moment. And that's the problem, is that most people miss out on opportunities and miss out on purpose because they're not being present. They're focusing on what's happening next or what they need to do next or where they need to be next, rather than being present where they are and asking how they can add value to the lives who are those around them in the moment.
Oh, so much gold. So here's the $1 million question. Where does somebody start, Davin? Where does somebody start who's struggling with it? Just, what are a couple pointers?
So number one, you need to eliminate distractions. Number one, this thing, listen, I live on this thing, this black phone, if you're not looking at the screen and you're listening to this, but it's a distraction. And so you need to eliminate distractions. if you're in a room with other people, you can't be on this unless you're taking notes, because you're going to miss something that's being said. That's an opportunity. So number one, eliminate distractions and be focused on whatever room that you're in. Be fully there. Be fully present. You can't be all things to all people, but you can be all of you to the person that's right in front of you. So give the people that are around you your full attention and be listening. Make eye contact. That's number one. Number two, you need to quiet your self-talk. We are so busy talking to ourselves that we often aren't hearing those around us. So you need to be actively listening so that you could hear that those who are around you, that maybe there is a problem or a need that they have that you would miss. And sometimes they're not directly telling you, here's what I'm struggling with, or here's what I need. A lot of times they're sharing a story about something that just happened, maybe just this past weekend or what. And if you're actively listening, you'll be able to say, you know what? I might be able to do something back there. In fact, we just talked about Adam Ritchie, one of my dear friends, and you guys have met him. And his why, you heard you guys talk about YOS in the beginning of the show. His why is a better way. Adam is a master at being present in a room and kind of listening to what's going on in the room and then figuring out a better way for people to be able to do what it is that they need to do or solve whatever it is that need to solve. He is really, really good at that. And so step number two would be to be quiet your voice in your mind so that you could be actively listening to those around you. And then step number three, and this is the big one, huge, big one. You have to separate the solution from the money, because sometimes the solution isn't you. Sometimes the solution isn't the product or service that you directly can get compensated for. And so a lot of times what happens is we don't solve the problems or meet the needs of those around us because monetary reward isn't attached to it. And if we would have separated that and, maybe I can't solve this problem, but let me tell you who can. One of the best examples of this is Miracle on 34th Street. For any of you who've ever seen Miracle on 34th Street, you'll know that watching that show that Macy's has Santa Claus at Macy's, and there's a woman who comes and sits on Santa Claus's lap, and her son asks for a toy that Macy doesn't sell. And Santa Claus sends the mother to Macy's competition to get the toy that she wants, but Macy's doesn't sell, which is a big no-no in sales, right? But the byproduct is she's so blown away by Macy's, or the Santa at Macy's, desire to put her needs over profitability, that she tells everybody about it, and Macy's makes it their number one new policy and becomes the store that everyone wants to shop at because they put the needs of the person that they serve over their immediate reward. So number one, eliminate distractions. Number two, limit your self-talk so that you can hear the needs of those around you. And then number three, think about how you could solve those separate from what your immediate reward might be.
I like that. And, as I'm listening to that, we've talked many times in Selling from the Heart around, hey, if it's not you, send them in the right direction. What comes around goes around. This will come back to you. But I think the other thing that I've noticed on the flip side of that is so many times when we're so wrapped up like Will Smith and getting the deal, right, and making that, we fail to notice the bigger thing, the bigger opportunity. I've sat with salespeople as a sales coach or sales leader many times over the last couple of decades where you go, they just totally missed, like they left something big on the table because they were so focused on the product and getting the approval and all of that they missed a much, much bigger deal. And I think this is really cool. I love what you said earlier about one of my all-time favorite books, The Experience Economy, where, you can sell at the level of product and commodity and you're going to be really, really miserable because the price is always going to be too high and all of that. Or you can bring purpose to what you do and sell at the level of transformation and back that up with what we call an inspirational experience here at Selling from the Heart. And to sell with the goal of actually helping people transform, and get the result they want and really move the needle forward and make a difference. Like that right there is worth getting out of bed for. And in my experience, when you do sell at that level of transformation, not only are you selling bigger deals, you're also making a difference, which means you get invited back and that thing grows. And so this selling with purpose is such a powerful concept. Hey, Davin, speaking of purpose, I got to go, and Larry's been as well, to one of the first purpose summits that you and the team at PurposePoint put on. Tell us about the Purpose Summit that's coming up, because I got to say that was an incredibly transformational experience for me when I got to go a couple of years ago.
I remember that well, and you've both experienced it in some capacity. Larry experienced it virtually during COVID. Daryl, you got to be there in person, and you came directly from the base of Mount Everest from one summit to the University of Notre Dame.
That's right.
For another summit.
I did.
And I tell that story often, right? From one summit to another summit, but from Everest to Notre Dame. And that was such a great memory back in 2022. And we're excited to do the Purpose Summit for a 5th year. This year, it's going to be in Charlotte, North Carolina, April 29th through May 1st. And you can go to thepurposesummit.com to learn more about that. But the Purpose Summit really is a gathering of some of the most purpose-driven business leaders, authors, thought leaders, speakers, contributors from around the world who get together to really sharpen each other, to learn from each other. There's so many relationships that get built. And I've seen so many different amazing organizations and movements and relationships that have been birthed, out of kind of these transformative moments that happen at the Purpose Summit. And so it's not your typical conference. And I'm not saying that just because, we're the ones that steward it. What's really interesting is what makes the summit so special is you've got all of these amazing people from around the world that are there for 3 days. And it's not a place that a speaker can normally pop in, give their talk, parachute in, parachute out. And so you're rubbing shoulders and talking with people that you would learn from only initially maybe from their books or from a podcast, or maybe hear from a stage at a conference, rather than actually getting some great one-on-one FaceTime and gleaning some insights that you can apply and go back and transform your life, the lives of those around you, your business, the businesses that you lead. It's amazing. Some of the things that we're seeing, there's been literally collaborations between companies, some really large companies, because of transformative moments that have happened together at the Purpose Summit, and they otherwise wouldn't have met, right? And so I could sit here all day long and tell you a story.
I love it.
But it's going to be a great experience.
Hey, I want to double dog dare you. Okay, lay it out, Larry. No, then I'm going to challenge that to everyone.
I was just going to say, because I know John Gordon's one of your speakers. Oh, and John's a great guy. John's been on the Selling from the Heart podcast. One amazing purpose-driven guy, Davin.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing.
Phenomenal. In fact, John came to the summit last year and spoke. And to be fully transparent, I didn't personally know John until last year. I've read John's works. I've read his books. Big fan. But John and John's daughter, Jade, and I spoke at a conference the year before last. And Jade had actually shared with me that she and her father had never shared the stage before. And it was very interesting because she, when she was younger, always thought, my dad is too optimistic. He's too positive. All this positivity stuff is all garbage. And then she went and she got her first real job in her 20s. And the company that she worked for didn't treat her well. And the first thing she said was, you guys need to have my dad come in here. And I said, have you ever told that story from stage? And she said, no. And I said, I think you and your dad should share that story together. And I'd like to invite you to the summit. And so they spoke together at the Purpose Summit last year. And it was the first time that John and Jade ever shared a stage together was at Notre Dame last year at the Purpose Summit. And then John actually texted me after the summit. And he literally said these words, and he wouldn't mind me sharing this. He said, that was such a special experience and a transformative experience for me personally and for my daughter. And if you'll have me, I would love to come back next year. And so he's coming back this year.
Super cool.
Right. And he's been a great person. Really, really, really great. But those are the type of things that happen at the Purpose Summit.
I would say especially if you're a leader, if you're a sales leader, just trust me on this one. Go to thepurposesummit.com. When this comes out, hopefully there'll be a few tickets left because this thing's going to book out. But you want to put this on your radar as something you want to attend, not once, but regularly, if every year. It's really, really dynamite. And I got to say, Davin, I just so appreciate your heart. I appreciate your enthusiasm. I appreciate what you bring to the world. And I really appreciate you sharing time with us here at Selling from the Heart today. As always, this has just been amazing.
Oh, the honor is all mine. I'm a big fan of your work, big fan of just the difference in the movement that you're leading in the world. And most of all, for your friendship. We've shared some very personal conversations over the last few years that you've been on the journey of selling from the heart. We've been on the journey of purpose. Yeah. And together we make the world a better place. So thank you for inviting me to be here today.
That's our pleasure.
Love it. Love it. Thank you, Davin. Appreciate you, man. Such a great conversation. I knew it was going to be good. And there's so many things here that are really important, but probably the most important one is to focus not on the money. Like what Davin was saying, the way he explained that at the beginning was really, really powerful. And when we can do that, I believe when we focus on purpose, that, the paycheck follows. The payday is going to follow that. But if we focus on the payday, the purpose doesn't come second, and we really struggle. And this is really at the heart of what it means to sell from the heart.
Yeah, it's so difficult. But here's the thing that I think about, Daryl. It's taking short-term thinking, but marrying it with some long-term vision. And if you can do that, watch what starts to happen. But everybody has the ability to find their purpose. It's all inside of us. It's going to take a little bit of work to figure out what that purpose is.
I love it. Well, if you want to discover your purpose, one of the best ways to do it is to hang out with like-hearted salespeople and sales leaders. Go to sellingfromtheheart.net/free-pass and join us for an upcoming Up Close and Personal. And you're absolutely going to love this community. I double dog dare you to do it. You're going to really, really enjoy it. Larry, we got some exciting announcements coming up soon. We got great guests on the show. There are so many reasons to like and subscribe. Thank you to everybody that is leaving a review for the podcast. And thank you to everybody who's telling the other people in your bullpen and even telling your clients about this, because there is a movement of authenticity and trust happening in the sales profession. And if you're listening, you made it this far on the show, you're part of it. So thank you.
No, we appreciate all of you. We're super grateful. Together, we're just building this movement, and that movement we call Selling from the Heart. So I personally thank you.
Yeah. Until next time, keep being genuine, keep being authentic, keep building trust, find your purpose in sales, and most of all,
sell from the heart.